Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Sports Betting Bros. Dave and Pete, glad you're with us. Hey, we're a new channel. We're building momentum. Please hit like and subscribe to be notified about future videos. And right now, Pete, we are building momentum. The NFL season coming down the home stretch. The betting is very exciting. One of the things we like to pick apart here about trends is, the sports books love you to bet parlays because their whole percentage is about 4 times greater. Take us through your thoughts in general on parlays. And what about 2 legs? What about 3 legs? Is there a point at which you should stop?
See, a young me loved parlays. When I'm just throwing $5, $10 on there, we would do parlays all the time, see if one hits or not. But then when I started getting more serious about betting and saying like, okay, we can actually make money off this, I realized that you might get lucky every once in a while on parlays, but in the long run, your luck's going to run out. And that's why sportsbooks love parlays, because they know, they'll give out a little bit of money here and there, but that high potential of payout is great, but that low probability of winning is even lower. I mean, you just try to think about going perfect on an NFL week. Let's say you do 5 NFL picks. Let's cut that down to 3. Let's say you do 3 NFL picks for the week, normal picks. How many times have you gone perfect on just those 3 picks? I mean, it's very hard to do parlays. But with that said, the way sportsbooks kind of handle stuff now, and the way they let you kind of get these alternate lines and custom lines, you can put together fairly advantageous parlays. They might not be such huge high potential payouts, but they will be higher than normal just one-on-one bets. So I think the way that sportsbooks let you kind of customize bets, tease bets, use alternate lines, I think they kind of give you a better opportunity at winning these parlays and making the game more exciting. Because parlays are exciting, especially if you're watching the game with friends and you're putting parlays on. I like doing parlays with UFC events and boxing events. I think that's probably the most successful I've been at parlays, because it's kind of, you have more of an idea who's going to win and who's going to lose. With NFL and MLB and stuff like that, sometimes anything can happen. But yeah, I think that's kind of my take on it. It's kind of up and down, but with the sports books and what they give you now, the customization and alternate lines, I think it kind of makes for a better bet.
We talk about it all the time. Find your edge. Now, I went totally with that in mind, but I would call this a perverted parlay in the fact that I'm 8 for 8 with this year. Being willing to settle for even money by making 3 picks. And the odds have to be in your favor to do it. But what I did was I took 3 games and took the alternate total of each game scoring to be in the neighborhood of 32 or 33 points. And you might sweat out one of them, and the payout for any of them individually would be bad. But 3 of them together could give you even money.
Or plus
now,
money,
I didn't love it. It was sort of an action bet, so I only put $20 on it. I can't trust it for $50 or $100. But if you do find an edge in something you like, and they will allow you to move the line that much, you can toy with something like that. The recent Monday night game, I got texts from people who did the same thing. They took Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton on opposite sides, Denver and Cleveland, each to get 44 yards receiving. And they got it. They got even money. So maybe it wasn't exciting, but what if your overall strategy was simply to try to add up those little wins and you didn't take any other chances? I think the key is a big time is that the books will change the odds on these games after a while, and you think you've got something figured out, and all of a sudden, maybe they see something too, and your price is more prohibitive. Remember, they're not talking and making their actions against smaller players like us. No. They're looking for the 5-6-figure players to make sure they don't get burned by them. So that's kind of an interesting look. But I think what we both see is the parlay rule is, yes, it's a big thing in favor of the book. But if you find your crease, you can find a small edge for yourself. And in our next segment, I'm going to talk about that a little more. All right, Pete, we talk about finding your misdirection. So I've got one here that I just put $10 on for the discussion of the show, and also to have just a little bit of juice. I put $11 on it because it's 11 to win 10. But here you go. The Carolina Panthers Philadelphia Eagles game, over 39.5.
Okay.
Buffalo and the Los Angeles Rams, over 39.5. The Seattle Seahawks and Arizona Cardinals, over 33.5. And you say, well, how do you get these numbers? I just push it down as much as they will let me. I take the over-under line, push it down as much as possible, and then hit the over. Okay. So that's how that one worked. Now, as a 3 picks, well, what do you think about those games? What do you think of the chances of those games, all those games going over the total? And do you think any one of them is vulnerable not to go over the total?
Well, from experience this season, the games I've lost this season are anytime I pick unders. I don't know what's going on. I haven't looked at the stats of unders, but like I'm staying away from unders. So I love over picks in 2024. I think offense is in an NFL. It's not defense wins championship anymore, even though Kansas City kind of won with their defense last year. But I feel like even in the garbage time, if the game's out of control, they're still going to score points. These guys still want to get theirs, right? So I think, especially if you can get that number down to what you did and then get even odds on it, I think that's great. I mean, you're not looking at it like a parlay anymore. You're looking at it kind of, you have the advantage on each of those bets. So it's kind of like a half parlay. So I think, yeah. So it kind of swings the odds in your favor, like 50%. So it kind of, you got to think of it a little differently than a parlay, like maybe like a next level parlay. And if you're getting even odds, I mean, you're still gonna win. You're still gonna win your bet. I mean, you're still gonna get profit. So I like those bets. I like all 3 games. I do like the overs for those games, and then especially if you can get those numbers down to what you can get down to, I agree with it. If
you did each one individually, the price would be so bad you could never do it.
Exactly.
So you need to have 3, and that's the key. So the idea with this, and I call it like an inverted parlay or even a perverse parlay, is you move the line so much.
Yeah, like a teased parlay or whatever you want to call it.
But that's if they'll allow you to do it. Now, some books will not. This one happened to be a FanDuel one that I did. Yeah. So you look for your edges like that. Now, but then again, this is recreational money because you know exactly what will happen, Pete. I put $10 on, $11. If I put $111 on, 110 to win 100, then I'm going to lose. So that's just the way it seems to go with me when I load up. So I keep it in the benign range. But everybody has something that they like, like that. Now, how about for you? Over the years, have you seen a particular, you're right about the parlay system in general. Has there ever been anything that you figured has consistently worked for you when you have tried parlays? Alternate lines. I do like using them. I feel like when I stick with point spreads and money line bets, I get a little better. I seem to have better success predicting who's going to win or lose over player props, touchdown scores. Anytime I do with the touchdown scores or player props, you can win a ton of money if you hit a parlay, but they are very, very, very rare. So every once in a while, I will put something like on the Eagles. A Dallas Goedert touchdown was a great bet to make because he's coming back. You haven't really seen the ball a lot. AJ Brown is a little banged up, and they were going to go after Barkley, so they wanted to kind of have him as an outlet pass. So I saw a lot of people hit on a parlay with a Dallas Goedert touchdown because everybody's going to do the Saquon Barkley, everybody's going to do Jalen Hurts, but that Dallas Goedert, you were getting good odds for it. And what did you get? Did you play that?
I did not play it because I just didn't play it. But when I was watching the game, I was looking at the live odds, and I just noticed it. It was over 250, over plus 250.
Wow.
But it was an anytime touchdown. But that was after when they were throwing him the ball because he was getting the ball a little bit.
Yes.
So I think when it started, it probably started like plus 300, maybe even higher. So If you can do one of those big chunks like that, like it's a plus 400 of a Dallas Goedert that you have a good feeling on and you have a lot of research behind it, and then do the more easier ones like a Jalen Hurts touchdown, which he gets a rushing touchdown every game because of the tush push, right? And then you get there's ones that are like, I don't know, plus 150, plus 150. Then that's where you can kind of use the research and kind of have a strategic crazy parlay.
Yeah, well, but then and you're helped out there by the fact that Devontae Smith not playing, so
again,
they have to go to Goddard some more. And there are a million stories about parlays. There was a guy a couple of years ago. He had a parlay where the first touchdown score of the game would be a tight end, and he had it in 3 straight games.
Wow!
And he hit 2 of them. And the third one was C.D. Lamb of the Cowboys against the Eagles. We had 2 tight ends, and he had C.D. Lamb as the third one Monday night. And in the first quarter, there was a bomb. C.D. Lamb catches it and is tackled at the half-yard line.
Wow.
And in the next play, the Eagles ran it in, and there was the Cowboys ran it in. There was no C.D. Lamb. So even when you make a genius call, you don't even make a genius result. I mean, great insight. Try to get those first scores for 3 games.
I want to kind of give a shout out to. I have been following this one guy who seems to be like I said, I think parlays are sucker bets, whatever. But there's this guy. He's from New Jersey. His name's Jordan Ludwick. He's the New Jersey betting guru, and he has the most success out of parlays that anybody I've ever seen. Like he just knows how to pick them. So some people are just good at that. I mean, but like you don't have to win them all. You don't have to win. You can get shut out on if you're doing like 3 big parlays a week, you can get shut out 2 weeks in a row and then hit the next week and you would probably still make plus money. So some people can make money doing it. Myself, I do it for fun if I see something like that, but I will do the research behind it and use the alternate lines. But somebody like Jordan Ludwick, the NJ betting guru, if anybody gets a chance, go check him out on like Instagram and stuff. He does a lot of those big parlays, UFC, NFL, stuff like that, and he seems to be winning a lot more than the norm is. So it's pretty exciting watching.
You got to share it. We can all make money if somebody is hot.
There you go.
Next segment, we'll talk about some props and trends. Hi, Pete. I had this trend early in the year. It was really good for me because the odds were close to even money, and it was field goal kickers indoors. So it was Younghoe Koo of the Atlanta Falcons, and he was a lock, a mortal lock for most weeks. But then he went into a tailspin where he went 4 for 10 at one stretch, and I'm off him right now. But I do like a couple possibilities for the Thursday night game. The Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions indoors. McManus for Green Bay, over under 6.5 points, and Bates for Detroit over 7.5 points. Now, I like both of them, even though there's been something holding back both as far as runaway totals. But what are your thoughts on these props and applied to this particular game?
Yeah. So when I initially looked at this, I thought I looked at the McManus one, and I thought, I don't like the over here. That's what my initial thoughts, because I look at the Packers and they rely on touchdowns to score most of the time. But then I kind of like took a deep dive into it, and I came to the conclusion that I think I would go over. I would bet on the over more than the under. And a couple reasons why is these guys are huge rivals. These games where these teams play a lot each other, they hate each other. They're usually close games. Close games tend to score a lot of field goals because there's little room for error. So people aren't going to go for fourth downs as much. They're going to kick the field goals, take the points. Also, Detroit has a really good red zone defense. Any team with a good red zone defense, it's hard to score a touchdown. So again, there's going to be a lot more field goals than that. That's why you see a lot of field goals against the Eagles, especially earlier in the year when they let teams drive down on them, and then they would have just give up the field goals. So any team if you look at their red zone defense, they can have a good defense, but if they have a good red zone defense, automatically field goals are going to increase. It's indoors, like you said. It's not at Lambeau. And I think it all comes down to really, it hinges to me on Green Bay's offensive efficiency, stalling in field goal range rather than scoring touchdowns. And I think they are going to stall in field goal range more than they would against any other teams that don't play them as much, as don't have such a big rivalry. I think it's going to be a close game, probably a 2-point game, I think. So yes, I like the over 6.5 for McManus.
All right, the 3.5 is the spread. Most recently with Detroit giving Green Bay 3.5. 24-14 was the score the first time the teams played in Lambeau. And you are right. Both coaches love to forget the field goal and go for it normally. I don't know what we would see here. Last year on Thanksgiving Day they played, and then the field goals were more prominent as a tool. But, it's interesting with Detroit. Campbell is such a gambler, a riverman. His name should be Casino Campbell. Bates had an over-under of 8.5, and he was still losing that bet when Detroit had 49 points against Jacksonville because it was only 7.
Crazy.
At the end of the game, he kicked a field goal to make it 10 points. But you say, okay, Detroit's running up the score. It's over 50. I do have my 7.5 points really easy. Well, no, you don't. It was 8.5. No, you don't. You needed a field goal at the end. And if they scored a touchdown, they would have 8 touchdowns. You would have lost.
Yeah.
So that's a tricky one, but if you have the angle, that's just as good as picking a game against the spread.
Sure.
So now let's go over to that game against the spread. You said a 2-point game. So does that mean you'd be leaning for the Packers to cover this 3.5?
Yeah. Not many franchises hate each other by these two franchises. It's going to be an intense game. It's going to be a close game. And when I saw that 3.5 points, I had to jump on it. I think it's going to be, like I said, a 1-point, 2-point game. Last week, Detroit didn't thrive. They didn't play great last week. They survived. And this week, they're playing against the Packers. And if they're going to try to survive this game, they could lose that game outright. So that's another reason. Also, Detroit's a growing list of injuries. You have Taylor Decker, DJ Reader, Josh Pascal, and their long list of IR that's already there. And the Packers had a bye in week 10, so they're fresh. Detroit had their bye in like week 4 or 5, so they're coming down to the stretch of the season where they're kind of getting a little bit tired. And the Packers are fresh off 3 big wins, like the Lions, and we already know that Jordan Love and his teammates are very comfortable at Ford Field. We've seen it, especially since we're getting the hook. There's no turning away from the Packers here. I think that plus 3.5 is a great pick.
They're saying, Pete, pick me. Well, Who else is Pete going to pick? We'll look at that in the next segment. All right, this is the segment where we tap in, drum roll piece, to Pete's picks. He's 11-3, everybody. No pressure, Pete, but you are 11-3. There are people on the line. Where am I going with my bankroll? All right, Pete, I know that you have a couple of dogs to tell people about this week. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I've been really fortunate this year. 11-3 in my NFL free pick games. I even have some friends texting me, asking me for picks, which is good. I mean, if I can make people money, I make people money. And let's keep the win train going. So you got my first pick, which was Green Bay at plus 3.5. I love that pick. The second pick will also be another underdog, like you said. The Jaguars versus Titans. The Jags are getting 4.5 points here, and I love that pick. The reason they're getting so many points, I think, is because Trevor Lawrence isn't playing. He's hurt. But I think that's actually going to help the Jags. For a team that's not playing for anything, they're not playing good. Trevor Lawrence really hasn't played good this season. And when you instill a new player like that, it adds a little bit of excitement. It gives some of the players a little more excitement to play for something. And you saw that when they put Mac Jones in week 13. He threw for 235 yards. They almost beat a really good Houston Texans team. And I think it's only going to help the Jags, if anything. Plus, the Titans are bad. They're a bad team. They're worse than the Jags. So I will take that 4.5 points all day. I think it's a great pick. Also, not as confident about this, but that Green Bay Packers Lions game, the total is a high 51. People are going to look at that and go for the under right away. I don't like to do that. I like to fade the public, as I like to say, and I'm going to take the over the 51. Two high-powered offenses. I think it will be a close game, but I think it will be a shootout as well. So I think I'm going to take the over 51 of the Green Bay Packers and Lions game as well.
And my field goal props would go right into your selection there on the over
Yeah.
with McManus and Bates. Now, what's interesting to me, and I have a quagmire here because one of the hottest teams against the spread, the Carolina Panthers, they've covered 4 games in a row,
Yes.
but they're playing the Eagles. So how much do you trust in a big number like that? And the other hot team is the Denver Broncos, and they've got a bye. The Broncos are 10-3 and NFL
crazy.
best against the spread. The Detroit Lions are next at 9-3. But the Broncos, their last 2 weeks, have had the cover sitting on the 1 yard line against them, where if they gave up the yard at the end of the game, they would lose the cover. And both times they kept the opponents out of the end zone. But that is why bettors don't have fingernails anymore.
Yeah.
You bet the Denver Broncos the last 2 weeks. You need blood pressure pills and everything else, but you did win.
They got the win. So
they did. Hey, so that's a look for us. Again, we love for you to share your stories. We'll have ways to get in touch with us up on here. The bros want to know what you know, and also to share some entertaining stories, as this is a sports betting and sports community. Please remember to hit like and subscribe as we build this channel. My buddy Pete Amato, this is Dave Bontempo saying thanks for joining us on the Sports Betting Bros, and we'll be back at you next week.